video for you guys today on some fishing tips and tricks for beginners. If you're new to fishing, this video will be very informative for you folks. If you're not new to fishing, may this be a refresher course on how to fish. But we're going basically over the basic skills for beginner fishermen. If you're new to fishing and you don't know how to fish, this video is for you guys. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is rod selection for beginner fishermen. We have two rods right here, guys, that I think are probably going to be your best bet for a beginner fisherman. The first rod we have here is the Zebco 33, which is a spin cast reel. And the second rod we have here is a spinning rod of some sort. You can use pretty much any spinning rod that you want, but if you're going to use the spinning rod, make sure you get like a size 2000 reel or 1000 reel with a 6-foot medium rod or a light rod as well. And here is a 5'6" light rod. This is a Shakespeare Micro Series rod. This is a good multi-species rod with a 1000 size reel on it. This is a great bank fishing rod for pond fishing or even river fishing or even creek fishing as well, because it has a 1000 series type of reel on it. This is the Piscifun Flame 1000. Now these reels are made in different sizes, ranging from 500 all the way up to 4000. But I think the sweet spot for a beginner fisherman is around a 1000 series reel or a 2500 series reel of some sort. Usually the best models that I would recommend to you are Shimano, Abu-garcia, Mitchell, some Zebco reels that are spinning reels that are okay reels, maybe Quantum makes a decent reel as well, and Daiwa. Okay, that being said, the 5'6" light rods, if you can find them, affordable rods, are good for bank fishing for first-time fishermen as well. With the spin cast rods as well, easy to cast. I'll show you guys how to cast it. Now, if you're going to be casting a spin cast rod, guys, you want to string your line through the rod eyes, through here, and then put your hook and a sinker on there for casting. Now, when you want to cast one of these spin cast reels, you'll have to adjust the drag to a point. Now, this one has an SLD drag, and you will have to adjust the drag to a point. And some of the lines I like on this reel in particular are 6, 8 to 10 pound tests for the Zebco 33s. There's some other companies that make these spin cast reels like Optimatics. They make them in various sizes, like 2000 all the way up to, I think, a 3000 series reel, all the way to an ultralight like a 11 or a 33 micro. I think the Luz also make a spin cast reel too that is small for ultralight fishing. So you got to kind of figure out what type of spin cast reel is good for you guys. But just for the tried and true bass fishing, cat fishing type of reel, or pan fishing type of reel, trout fishing for a beginner, the Zebco 33 is a good reel because it has a lot of features on it that I like, and I'll show you how to cast it here in a minute. It has a bait runner. Now, what the bait runner for is, guys, what the bait runner is used for, guys, is for bait fishing. It leaves this clicking noise on it when you're reeling it, and then when you flip it back over, it locks the anti-reverse back into place. So when you're casting it out, when you cast your line out, you got a hook on it, or you got your hook on it, and you got your sinker on it, and you got your bait on the end of it. What that does is that it lets the fish run a little bit with the line, because you want to, if you're using bait, if you got a really big fish on there, you let the fish run a little bit with the line backwards until you count it for a couple seconds, and then you think the fish has got the bait in its mouth all the way. You hit that little switch and you start reeling it in, and then set the hook on it. You know what I mean? Now, if you want to cast this reel, guys, it's very simple. I see a lot of people make this mistake with the spin cast reels. They push the button and they use their whole arm to cast. You don't use your whole arm to cast this reel. You just push the button like this, and you want the reel in this direction, like kind of sideways. You draw it back, you use your wrist to cast, and then you hold the button in. And when you're about to cast, at the very end of your tip of your pole, you let go of the button, and the line will shoot off of the reel. And then if you want to stop it from overcasting so you don't overshoot your spot that you're trying to cast it into, you hit the button real quick and it breaks the reel. Now this reel has a little break on the top of it right here on the spinner cone, and what that does is it jams the line at the top of the spinner cone to break your line. So by casting it that way, you'll get a precise and easy cast. Sometimes you don't even have to throw it that hard when you're flicking it. You want to flick it like that, and your line will do all the work when you let go of the button to cast. You don't need to, you know, use your whole arm to cast. You know what I mean? You just flick it. If you really want to cast it far, you put a lot more force into it when you flick the rod with your wrist and then let go of the button to cast. If you don't want to overshoot your target, you hit that button and it breaks the line to where it doesn't overshoot. Now when you're fishing with a float, you want to use a little bit longer rod on the bank, which is 6-foot rod is plenty. You could go up to a 7-foot rod if you want to with a spinning reel. If you're wanting to use a float, if you're using bait fishing, if you're bait fishing or you're using jigs or floats, the 6-foot rod is plenty. It's a little bit stiffer than, let's say, a light rod or an ultralight rod, but if you're using a float, this is perfect for a float type of setup with a jig head or a bobber or even bait, because when you're fishing with a bobber, you guys, is you cast it out. Once you cast that bobber out and you break it to where you think the fish is at, the waves will do a lot of the work, making the bait go up and down. And you just slightly reel it, just reel it slow and just twitch it a little bit, let the bait settle. Reel it in a little bit again, twitch it a little bit, and then let the bait settle, because the bait will go up and then fall back down. And that kind of gives it makes it where you could drag the bait over a fish bed or over a fish's line of sight. The line of sight is always up, so it might trigger a reactionary bite if you're using a jig or a bait to catch that fish. With the spin cast reel, you know, barely reel it in and then twitch it, and that way the wind or the, you know, boat wake and stuff like that will help move the bait up and down slowly. But you just want to reel it slow and then jerk it a little bit, let it sit for about a minute, reel it again, jerk it a little bit, and then, you know, let it sit again. And that way you might get a reactionary bite. The next reel, now the way you cast the spinning reel is fairly similar to the spin cast reel in some ways. In some ways it isn't. Now with the spinning reel, it is a little bit of a challenge, but it's still good for beginner fishermen. What you do with the spinning reel is you want to get one of these spinning reels is you get the bail line guide all the way up to where your finger is. Now you want to hold the rod like this, you know what I'm saying? You want to put your 2 fingers like this and like this, like this. You want to hold it like that because that perfectly balances out the reel. And you get that line guide up to your finger. You just want to grab it with your tip. You don't want to put it in the crease of your finger like that, because when you cast, it could cause a backlash or a lot of line twists. So you just grab the line like this, you flip the bail over, and then when you're wanting to cast this, you know, you want to lead the line up to about there, as you can see, and then, you know, you grab the line with the tip of your finger, the bail line guide up to here, grab the bail and flip it over, and basically use your wrist like you do with the spin cast reel. And then once you get to a point when you're wanting to cast by using your wrist, you let go of the line like that. If you want to stop the line from overshooting your target, you put your hand on top of the reel like this to stop it, and then crank it over and basically start to reel it in with the line. It's the same concept float fishing with these spinning reels as it is with the spin cast reel. Okay guys, next up is very simple rig techniques that you guys can be utilizing for fishing here. The first one I'm going to show you guys is a simple bait rig called the split shot rig for beginners. And what you'll need for this split shot rig is either a standard size 4 or size 8 J hook. This right here is the Aberdeen hooks. These are good for float rigs. These standard Aberdeen hooks are good for float rigs, or even just a standard split shot rig right here, guys. And then you'll need a float, and you will need a pack of an assortment of split shots like this here. This is going to be the first rig I'm going to show you guys how to do. You open up your hook pack, or you can get any type of hook you want. Eagle Claw have size 4, size 8 hooks in an assortment that have like the little barbs on the back to hold your bait on there. You want to get one of your hooks, remove your hooks from the package. This is going to be a bait rig, just a standard bait rig for beginners. Is you take your line and put it through the eye of the hook like this. Now we're going to do a improved clinch knot, very easy knot to learn how to do. You can see this right here. You want it about, I don't know, 4 inches on the tag line like this, and then you wrap it like 4 or 5 times over. You got a little loop here in the middle like this, and then you take the line, the tag into the line, put it through the eye of the loop. I mean, you put it through the loop of the knot like this. Take that tag line, run it under the center of the loop like this. Center of the loop like this. Hold that tag line in the other hand, wet it down with your spit, and pull it. And you pull it tight like that, and you'll get an improved clinch knot, which is better than the regular clinch knot. And then you got a knot right there, and then you can cut the tag line off. Cut the tag line like that off, and then you take your split shot, run it down about a foot above the line, a foot or so, and you run that split shot on there like that, and you can bite it down on the split shot to tighten it up. Then take your bobber, or just any standard round float like this, and on top there's a little spring right here. You want to hold the spring and the little bronze hook down on your thumb. Grab the bottom of the line from the bottom of the bobber. Now you could adjust your depth with this, but you have to do it in the process of before you put the other part of the line on top of the spring and the hook of the float. You can adjust your depth like this to how far you want it to go underneath the bobber. You want it to go 2 feet. Check the water to see how deep it is. If it's like, I don't know, 6 to 7 feet, you want to run the bobber about 2 to 3 feet underneath the bobber. If it's like, I don't know, 13 foot of water, you want to run it about 6 feet down, because fish are going to come up, because you know fish are sight fish. They look up when they're attacking their prey. So once you got your bobber set to the depth that you want, then you take the other you hold down the other side of the bobber, and then bring your line over the top of it. It's kind of tricky. And then you run the line on top of it like this to hook onto the line like that. You got it hooked to the bobber like that. You got it set to the depth that you want. Then you're ready to fish with it. Now with the float, you can fish any type of bait with this float that you want. With this Aberdeen hook, you can use a minnow. You can put a worm on here. You could take a piece of white bread and squish it up and push the hook into the bread and smush it onto the end of the hook as bait. You can use dough baits, different types of dough baits on the end of this hook, worms, hot dogs, whatever. Any type of bait that you want to bait this hook with, you can use. You can even use cut bait. If you want to use a small piece of with a bigger hook and you want to go for catfish, you could put a small piece of cut bluegill, shad, shiner, skipjack, whatever you want on the end of this hook to catch channel cats, flatheads, and blue catfish. But you'll have to use a bigger bobber and heavier line on a bigger rig setup than that. Now if you want to just do the standard bait rig or the split shot rig, Just take this here bobber off here, this float off, and now you have a ultralight bait rig. It's called the split shot rig. Now when you use the split shot rig, you put the bait on the end of the hook, just like I said you do with the float as well. You put the bait on the end of the hook, you cast it out as far as you can in multiple spots, and then you reel it as slow as you can, snail's pace, with the line. What this does is it keeps your bait from hitting obstructions and getting snagged on stuff by keep moving the bait slowly and then stopping and letting the bait sink and then reel it in again. It floats that bait up like this, and then you stop and let it sit again. Eventually you'll get a reactionary strike from either a bass or a bluegill or a catfish. Because you're running that bait across their bed, they're going to do a reactionary strike to the split shot rig. Very simple rig, guys. For a beginner fisherman, this will annihilate fish for fishing for multiple species of fish with different various types of baits. You can also use crickets as well. Now the next rig I'm going to show you guys how to do is the jig head bait rig, or you can use this for bait fishing. You can use this for put maggots on here. You can put wax worms. You can put a small piece of night crawler on here. You could use various different types of plastic baits on this rig as well. This is just a standard jig and bobber rig. Anybody can do this, guys. Now you could use a smaller jig head for this. You could use a 1/6 ounce jig head. You could use a 1/32 jig head for this. Now what you guys want to do here is put the tag in the line through the eye of the jig head. Again, standard clinch, improved clinch knot here, guys. You want to hold the line down with the two pieces of line, the tag line and your main line. You squeeze it like that so you can make a loop and go over about 4 or 5 times like that. You want to twist the line over on the main line from the tag line. Put the tag line through the loop of the knot like that. Come over with the tag line, put it through the other loop of the knot, the exposed loop of the knot like this. It's a pain in the butt to do, and once you get it down, you want to grab that tag line and your main line on the jig head, wet it with some spit, hold that tag line down like this and pull it tight, and it will pull tight on your jig head, and that jig head ain't going anywhere. Cut off the excess tag line. Now we got the jig head tied to the line. Now you can put a float on this jig head like this. You put the float at the bottom like this on the line. Well, this float's not really cooperating very well with me. You put the float on the jig. You hold that top of that bobber down, and there's a little hook on the bottom end of the bobber and the top. Now we got the jig head and the bobber put together. Now you could adjust it like with the hook I showed you. You could adjust the line for depth from, I don't know, 2 foot to 3 foot, depending on how deep the water is. You can usually tell if the bobber is running too deep. It'll sit on its side like this, and if you got the just the right amount of depth, it should sit upright like this when you got it set right. But once you got the depth set right on your bobber, you could hold the bottom end of the bobber like this, and there's a little hook right there. I don't know if you can see it. Put that line through that top like that and pull it kind of tight, and there you guys go. That's how you set up a float for your jig head. Now you can put a plastic bait on here, or you can put regular bait on here as well, with the jig head and float technique, and then you just reel it in as slow as you can. Twitch it a little bit, let it sit for about a minute. If you don't get a hit that time, you reel it in and twitch it again. Now when you want to set the hook with a float, guys, you gotta reel the fish in. As soon as you see the bobber go down, you reel it in as fast as you can, and then raise your rod tip up in a hook setting motion, and you will set the hook. I see a lot of people make that mistake of when the bobber goes down, they set the hook immediately, and you can miss a fish that way. Reeling it in fast to catch up with the line, and then raising your rod tip in a hook setting motion, you'll hook you will set the hook on a fish every time when the bobber goes down. Again, you could put any kind of bait you want on this jig head. It'll work just the same as the Aberdeen hook as well with the jig head. But what the jig head does, you don't need the split shot on the line underneath the bobber in order to sink the bait. And by doing this, you basically take away the fact that you need a weight underneath the bobber to get the bait down. If you're using a hook, you may want to use a couple split shots, maybe 2 or 1. If you're using a smaller bobber like this, you only need 1 weight. If you're using a bigger bobber like this, you can tell the size difference. This is more for like bass fishing. The bigger bobber, you may want to put like maybe 2 split shots on it. But with the little bobber, you only need like a small split shot to get the bait down to where the fish are, to the depth that you set your bobber. Again, if you want to put a plastic on here or something, like if you're wanting to use a plastic bait with this, take your plastic bait out, and you could use like a baby shad or curly tail jig, or a small swim body bait type of plastic bait. You want to run your hook down the body of the bait, put that plastic over the head like that on the jig head, and that's how you set up the plastic bait on these as well. You can also stick bait on there, like I said, any type of bait you want. Now if you're just wanting to do the standard jig, you can take this bobber off of the line here and just run it as a jig itself with the plastic bait on it, and run it without the bobber on it. You can just run it as a search jig, and you can just cast it out and reel it as slow as you can with the jig head on there, slow as you can. And if you feel a fish hit, you set the hook on them and you reel them in. It's as easy as that with the plastic bait. Now you can't really do that with bait with this, because you'll get snagged up all over the place. But you can use the bait with the float with this. It's a dynamite rig to catch fish. But with the plastic bait, you got to keep it constantly moving, slow as you can when you're reeling it. And if you get a fish to hit it, you want your rod tip pointed down and reeling it slow. And when a fish hits it, you set the hook immediately, because when a bluegill or a crappie hits, you have to set the hook immediately or you'll miss the fish. Well, okay guys, I hope you like these quick tips and tricks on types of rigs and types of fishing rods for beginners. If you like this video, please hit the like, share, and subscribe. This has been your old pal Hondo from Hillbilly Tactical. You put God first, to put you first every time. And you know what else, YouTube? God loves you, so does Hondo. Peace out, everybody.